Welcome everybody to another session of ICT Dialogues for Analysts. Today we have with us Giovanni King, who is the CEO of the Curacao's Telecom Bureau. He's one of the most experienced individuals when it comes to the telecom markets in the Caribbean. He has a trajectory that spans for decades. That's with a big S at the end, although he doesn't like to say that. And he's going to be talking and explaining to us Curaçao's strategy to become a smart nation. Welcome and thank you for being here today, Giovanni.
I'm Jose and everyone, and today, thank you very much for the opportunity. Like Jose has indicated, we're going to be talking about Curaçao's journey towards becoming a smart nation. I think it is very fair and important to say that the basis of our philosophy is anchored in what Singapore has done. We wasn't going to reinvent the wheel, but look at what they did and also see how we could make it fit our own needs and our own circumstances. So that having been said, our philosophy is based on the following. It is the objective to rally everybody on the islands to come together. So people, businesses, government, to work together to support or create a better environment for all of us, making use of technology to enable a better living environment and better quality of life on the island. And moving and looking forward, if we're doing it for us, then everybody else that visits the island will benefit from all that we are doing to create this better environment for each and every one of us. In our journey, it is important that we have noticed, or that we keep on stating, that technology is just a tool. It's just an instrument to create that better quality of life for every citizen on the island. And it's not the main purpose. So we're going to use technology, we're going to use the information that we collect because we're implementing and using innovative tools so that we can make more informed decisions and better educate our society moving forward. We found that in order to create this platform, it was important to create an official structure. So the Smart Nation platform was established by government decree in 2018. We then had this initial conference where we brought all stakeholders together to share the vision that government had and that was going to be used to create a smart nation. And in order to basically make sure that everybody is invested in what we're doing, we identified the most important ministries that we thought was important to be part of the movement. Of course, in order to create a bigger platform, it was important that the Prime Minister was part of the group, even though his actions within the group were going to be limited. The Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Transport, Communication and Spatial Planning, and Ministry of Governance, Planning and Services, those would be the ones that would be more actively involved in executing the vision that government has put forward in 2018. The Bureau of Telecommunications and Post, and you'll see it written there as being the Regulatory Authority of Curaçao. This is our new rebranding and our new name moving forward, would be the secretariat of this platform, while the Ministry of Economic Affairs would be the workhorse of the team, where all of the conferences or all of the executed plans would be administrated and also be known by general public. In order to communicate with the public, we have established a Facebook page, because at that particular point in time, most of our citizens had Facebook presence. So there it would have been much easier for us to keep them informed of all of the developments moving forward. The basis of the approach is aimed around the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. We are using these as principles so that we can measure our progress with the rest of the world and see where we can do better, or where we can look at those where we don't necessarily need to do a lot because they're not necessarily having a big impact on our social life or life in general on the island. We have identified 6 pillars that we find that we needed to do a lot of work, or where we could have made the biggest impact with not having to do a lot. So the 6 primary pillars of the SDGs that we are using are pillars 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and 11, even though we are working on all, but these are the ones that we are projected or put in more efforts in, because we think that at the end they will have a bigger impact and they will impact the other pillars, even though we're not addressing them directly. And you would see that as we move through the slides one by one. In my presentation, what I want to do is to let you see what we have done or what we are doing based on these 6 pillars. I have, of course, I don't think I need to read each pillar and what their generic are as identified or defined by the UN, but they're there for everybody to read. So if we move to one of the most important pillars where we have been putting a lot of effort in is number 3, which is dealing with good health and well-being. Even though the Ministry of Health is not an integral part of the Smart Nation platform, their impact is major, and that's why this pillar is also in one of the main pillars that we are putting a lot of attention on. One of the reasons that this became the most important one is because of our most recent dealings with the pandemic. We have seen that as an island, we are very dependent on the import of food for the island, as we have moved away from agriculture in its traditional forms. And it was important for us to, create new interest in agriculture. And one of the ways that we thought of it being done is to introduce our local farmers and or new other people that were interested in farming or agriculture to look at the new ways that this can be done using technology or smarter ways of getting things done in comparison with how they have been done traditionally. So the Bureau of Telecommunications, with some of its partners on the island, created what we call the Institute for Professional Excellence. And this group basically approached several universities or institutions that were doing modern forms or alternative forms of agriculture, and we brought them to the island, or we did Zoom or Teams classes during lockdown to educate a lot of people on the island into these new skills. So in collaboration with the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine, Trinidad, we educated over 500 people on the island in hydroponics. Government made land available in order for the people, those that graduated these courses, to start building their own facilities to start growing their crops. We imported the initial seedlings in order to get the farmers started. And right now, basically what we have is that this group of people is growing, and we are seeing more and more production of certain crops on the island that was not being done in the past. In collaboration with the Maharishi International University out of Iowa, we did a training in regenerative organic agriculture. Even though this is basically a traditional form of agriculture, but what we have been taught here, or what the students have been taught here, is how to use the local um, trees or soil itself, as opposed to using foreign products to make sure that their crops are not being infected. This training with the university MUM taught them to use the local plants to fight any form of infection that could be done to the crops. And in addition, we also did with the institution out of Australia, we did scientific agriculture. Again, where they're looking at the current situation on the island and not introducing foreign methods to make sure that the crops grow in a more organic form. We did training in fisheries, even though we're our island. This is not one of the things that our people have been doing in a way that it was producing enough for us to be self-sustainable. So we're hoping that this can keep on growing. The ministry also introduced a program where we went to the neighborhoods to teach, and it's called Kunukito, which means small farm, to teach not farmers, but basically everybody in the small neighborhoods how they could basically cultivate their own crops and how to produce or prepare more healthy food, so that we are being more preventative as opposed to having to deal with people that are becoming ill because they're not eating properly. There are a lot of projects being developed across the island, creating facilities to facilitate fitness in public areas, areas where people can walk without having to be aware of traffic, or areas where people can just sit and relax, trying to create a better environment and hopefully reduce stress. So these are some of the projects that the ministry is looking into. And all of these things we're doing in collaboration with the private sector. As I have mentioned before, we have created the Facebook page, which is called Smart Nation Curaçao. On this page, what we are trying to create is a community where public sector, government come together, share opinions, and look at communalities so that they could work on projects together, and as opposed to not being aware of what's happening in our islands. This page is a very active page with daily posts, so we can see what's happening on the island in all of the 6 main areas that I have indicated. Another part that is very important is SDG number 4, quality education. So this is very important because, again, being an island, we have been focusing a lot on creating jobs on the island, while through digitalization, we have seen that you also can export the knowledge that you have created here, or import knowledge by allowing people to come here and work from Curaçao and providing the services to the rest of the world. In order to make sure that our community and society is well connected, we have been working on the digitalization of our education ecosystem, where we are making sure that all schools are connected to a fiber infrastructure. We have created a centralized structure where applications that all school and school boards use commonly are being shared. Licenses are in bulk as opposed to individually, and through that creating a form of leverage while we're negotiating license fees. We have we are now able, because we're collecting information on the progress of the students throughout their educational trajectory, we are able to provide individual attention to the needs of each individual students. Of course, you're only going to focus on those that you see there is an urgent need, but because we were not doing this in the past, it was very difficult to jump in and assist a student which you have identified their particular needs from an early stage. And all of the information continues with the students through their career, so that each new teacher or professor knows how to deal with each individual student as they move forward. This project is still in progress. There are some urgent needs, as we have identified that there are some of our schools that where the internal infrastructure, so the networks, the internal networks, the Wi-Fi, and these type of requirements are not there. But again, because we are communicating this with businesses, what we have seen is that most businesses jump in and are now providing government assistance to basically build out these infrastructures. We are in the process of training our teachers to provide virtual classes, because as a result of the lockdown, we have seen that even though they have been trained to teach, teaching in a virtual environment is very much different than while you're doing this in a brick and mortar classroom. So our teachers are in the process of going to training trainers, and hopefully they would then basically teach their colleagues how to use these tools, so that in the case of a future lockdown, or in the future trying to use these forms of education to reach more people, we are going to be prepared for that. As I have mentioned, one of the developments that we think is very important was the establishment of the Institute for Professional Excellence, IPE, which has as the objective to prepare our local workforce that are losing their jobs because of the digital transformation and the fast changing pace of global developments. We're training them that, well, even though certain jobs are being lost as a result of the digital transition, there are new jobs that are being created, and you need to be prepared for those so that you can transition in a new position. So IPE has the objective to do this. And again, because we know that most of our people are using Facebook, IPE also has a Facebook page where they are in constant communication with the public, letting them know of the new programs and training that they are introducing on the island. Next thing, as we are an island, affordable and clean energy. So of course, like most of us in the world, Curacao was fully dependent on fossil fuel for its energy generation. In the last years, we have made a major switch as we introduced wind turbines and solar energy as part of the energy production on the island. And we are very proud to announce that currently we are at 34% of our energy production is through renewable, both wind and solar. We are working with multiple organizations that are wanting to test alternative ways, for instance, by using the waves of the ocean to generate energy to work together, because our objective is that by 2035, we want to reach 50% our energy needs to be produced by renewables. We have a renewable energy policy that the local minister and both the energy production company of our wing to a T. We are currently looking at ways to increase the number of energy produced by wind and solar. And hopefully that will be done because studies are showing us how we're going to achieve that. One of the things that we're also currently looking towards is how to store the energy using batteries. As you guys already would know, these are the most expensive parts of the ecosystem up to this point. What we are doing now is working with, again, third parties to see if they are ready to come to the island, as we are creating various sandboxes for people that want to come in and do all type of experiments, or to see how regulations can impact one or a different part of this development. By doing so, we hope that we will be in the early curve of the implementation, big scale implementation of these type of storage units. Pillar number 8, we're talking about decent work and economic growth. There are different things that we are looking at. Of course, Curaçao, just like most of the islands in the region, has as one of its major economic development pillars the tourism industry. But as all of us also know, all of our islands are basically offering the same, which is sun, sand, and sea. So we're looking at what we can do differently by leveraging some of the things that we think that not all of the other islands can offer, and we think that our main or biggest competitor in this part is Puerto Rico, as Puerto Rico is the most connected island in the region, and we think that we are the second best connected island in the region. So we are trying to leverage on that to create a different form of economy. What we are looking at doing today is also develop Curaçao as being one of the digital hubs for the region, and leveraging of some of the assets that we already have. But I'll talk about that on the next sheet. So from a digital economic development perspective, we are looking at becoming or developing ourselves as being offering the services of edge data centers, disaster recovery, financial services, as this is one of the aspects that we already are very strong in the region, cybersecurity services. When it comes to tourism, we're looking at what can we do different again, from a perspective of digital nomads. What can we offer these young people that are not necessarily tied to a desk and a brick and mortar office in a particular country, because we know we are well connected? How can we bring them to the island to create that form of tourism as well? We have just recently finalized the construction of our new medical center on the island. With the technology and the knowledge out of the Netherlands, we are hoping that for certain islands in the region, we can become the area where they can come for medical help, hopefully creating a spin-off as medical tourism. And again, education, because in collaboration with some of the universities of the region, we want to create an ecosystem where their students can come to the island for a year and finalize certain aspects of their curriculum here on the island. We are investing a lot in self-employment because we think that the digital transformation is creating this new aspect of employment, where you can sit on the island and work for whichever company all across the world. So one of the most important things there is the connectivity, but also creating entrepreneurship. We have been a country where mostly everybody works for government or for the oil refinery. Since PDVSA left the island, the oil refinery isn't really operational. So we are in urgent need to create a new sense of employment. We have a lot of skilled people, so it's a question of how to turn this around and let them know that they are not required to work for a specific company, but they can offer their services on their own as long as they do it in an educated manner. One of the things that we're trying to do is the entrepreneurship is to show everybody that you can be individual in the services that you offer, but collectively you can be stronger. So we have been teaching all of these people through that have come to training with the Institute for Professional Excellence, the basics of doing work collectively. And we're also working on strengthening our financial sector, looking at other financial services that we can offer as opposed to only the offshore sector that we have for years, and that has been contributing to our economic development in its totality. Infrastructure is one of the things that we are very proud of and are continuously building on. As I indicated, there are some of our natural resources that we're using. I just indicated for that we have an oil refinery here, no oil, but the refinery. And the main reason the refinery was here is because we had our natural harbors, which were deep, and the big tankers could come in without an issue. So we created the services of transshipments, the container harbor. We have a free trade zone in our harbor, and we have the largest dry dock in the region. So these are things that we're also working on to make sure that we create that additional economic development using the infrastructure that we have. When it comes to electronic communication facilities, we have invested a lot and are still investing in making this better. We have multiple data centers on the islands, of which one of them is a Tier 4. We have 6 subsea cables. We have an internet exchange, which is managed by one of the biggest ones out of Amsterdam, which is called AM6 Caribbean. We have 2 telecoms, fixed telecoms operators, 2 mobile operators, and we're currently in the process of licensing 2 new operators, both for fixed and for mobile. The intention is that we are creating on the fixed side, we are creating a open fiber network so that in the future we can license service providers without the need to create or build out a new infrastructure. What we hope to create with this is more which would benefit the consumers on the island, both in price and quality of service that they are being offered. Leveraging off of this is where we're looking at providing services, as I indicated in the beginning. How do you scale and transform this infrastructure into an asset that can be used by digital nomads or even by our own workforce that is now capable of providing digital services from Curaçao to any part of the world. And the last aspect of it is sustainable cities and communities. Basically, at the foundation of it is the digitalization of government. And this has been the biggest struggle up to now. This is where the most work has to be done and the most effort has been put in to basically show people that while we're going through the process of digital transformation, it brings a lot of change, but the change is for good. Most of the work here up to now has been done into getting into communication or discussions, positive and constructive discussions in the different ministries, trying to bring about change, where you can show what the benefits are that the digital transformation will bring to the ministry itself, but also the most important thing, to the service that government or the ministry needs to give to the public, because that's where we're lacking a lot. This process is lengthy. There is not one ministry that is at that level of digital transformation that we are looking for. The only one that has been making major strides is the Ministry of Education, as I indicated previously. They're building out the education ecosystem on fully digitalized platform. But there are small steps that we're making. The Ministry of Urban Planning, in collaboration with an institution out of the Netherlands, has created what we call a digital twin of the island. What they're using the digital twin for is to basically simulate one of the major problems that we have, which is public transportation. We have created the digital twin, and now we are in process of seeing how we can make it so that people can move from one side of the island to the next side of the island without making stops, or where can we put, let's say, hubs to make the exchange from one bus to the next, or from one public transportation to the next, in a very efficient way. This is still in its infancy. The process has only started like 2 years ago, and the data coming from this is just now being processed. So we hope that in the future we will see the results, and that this first project will also lead to other ministries going in and seeing how they can use the digital twin. One of the project that was discussed again was during COVID, where we started to put in information into the digital twin to see where the different pockets of infections was, and if there was any conclusions that could be drawn from the information gathered through the use of the digital twin. I'm not aware of any results coming from that one, but it's something that I could be looking into. We are also running a project of urban transformation, looking at how to build more harmonized neighborhoods. Again, taking into the creation of these new neighborhoods things that we're learning today. Areas, for instance, to do, for instance, something like hydroponic farming or agriculture. How do we create these new neighborhoods with all of the facilities for recreation, which would lead to better health, or facilities to make sure that the youth of the neighborhood have something to do and they will not be on the streets doing mischievous things. We are also looking at how to create areas where people don't need to travel far to get to their work. So if you can, instead of centralizing everything, do some form of this decentralization to keep the work and living areas more harmonized. That has been done in a project run by the same ministry, again, of urban planning. That is a project in progress right now. We are also seeing, as a result of our lack or our shortcomings with public transport, the introduction of Wi-Fi in buses and public transportation, and also the introduction of what we're calling the smart bus stops, so that people can be aware of where the buses are, how much time it will take before they reach, the bus reaches their stop, and how much time it would take them to reach their final destination. And hopefully this would improve or make it so that more people start using public transportation as opposed to what's being done today. What you're seeing today on our island is a lot of cars on the road, and basically each car with one person in it. What we're also doing is promoting the use of electric vehicles. There are no taxes being paid on the import of these vehicles onto the islands right now, even though they're still expensive. The uptake of it increases every year. What we are also seeing is that we are now creating the facilities for people that own these not to only be able to charge them at their houses, but also in public areas. Charging stations are being built by the energy production company, or at hotels. The hotels themselves are putting them in, and in that way, making it so that the tourists can also rent the electric cars as opposed to the fossil fuel driven cars. What we've noticed up to now is that communication is the most important thing. Keeping the public and all of the organizations that are part of the Smart Nation community informed of what government is doing, but also of what the public sector is doing. Coming from the Smart Nation platform, the public sector has created something called Curaçao Data Days. And the Bureau of Telecommunication is also supporting this initiative. It's an annual conference in which people come together, all of us come together. There are different presentations of different projects that are also in line with the Smart Nation development. Government comes up and says and shares policies that are being prepared to facilitate or to motivate the concept of Smart Nation development. We are talking about the importance of data collection. We are talking about data-driven decision-making and how that can impact policies. Still in its infancy. Like I said, we just started in 2018 and we are moving forward. So we are still in a learning curve, but we have seen a lot of progress. I'm happy with the developments up to now, but like I said, we have still a long way to go. One thing that has catapulted the development in the last few years was, sad to say, but it was the pandemic, as we are all inside and we needed to make use of ICT to communicate and to get things done. So the uptake has been tremendous as a result of COVID. One of the things that is also beneficial is that Curaçao, as I indicated, is a well-connected island. We have over 100% coverage through mobile networks, over 80% coverage through fixed broadband connectivity with speeds from 100 megabits per second and up. And that facilitated the totality of the progress that we're making. There are areas, especially when it comes to the elderly, where we still have to get some work done because they are not moving forward in this development as fast as the rest of the country. But the Bureau is working on programs which will involve them as well. And we're doing this in collaboration or in cooperation with the different organizations on the island that are there in the defense of the elderly population. It is important for us to do it because, as statistics show, our population is becoming grayer and grayer as the birth rate on the island isn't increasing in relationship to the growth of the elderly population. I think with that, I have covered all of the basis of what we have been doing up to now. And I don't know if there are questions that I can answer. If there are those, I'm open to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Giovanni, for your presentation today.